Okay, guys, I know you were probably expecting more 3D printed parts out of me uh, before today, but there's been a lot going on around here. Uh, I've found more information. Some of you saw the little quick blurb I put out about the Polymaker settings, that they had some retraction settings and stuff on their site that I had not seen until Thursday or Friday of this previous week. Those settings did not work out for me, but we're going to talk about that because a lot been going on here. First of all, we're going to talk about this print right here. Well, I guess in reference to this information right here, this is the Titan Dynamics site. This is the plane I'm building. It's a free download. I keep looking in here for more little instructions. I don't find them. So I went over in the forum for this and found some information. But that information is duplicated in this model right here. This is the Titan Talon V2 version 2. I'd love to start this one. There's no sense in me trying to build two for the first time at the same time. So I did come over and look at this, and I actually have it in my shopping cart. Have had it in my shopping cart for a week or so. Just thought I'd test the other one first. I think this one is a much better airplane than the version 1. Just my humble opinion. And will print better. But in looking at this one and reading their forums the other day, notice this on this particular build right here. 0.3 layer height. Got 4 top and bottom layers here. Single wall, 4 top and bottom, 0.3 layer height, 3% cubic subdivision infill. They suggest using a glass bed with some kind of adhesion. I understand that. No supports needed. I saw this myself, and I went back and printed a few parts I'd printed with supports before without supports. But again, let's not stray too far from this right here. One nice viewer had come in and simply said in an email, message, whatever, communication, what's your layer height? And I typed back 0.1 at that time. And a lot of you that used Cura for quite a while are going 0.1. What's he talking? 0.1. That's not your normal layer height. No, it's not. That kind of comes from your possible. There's some profiles in here. I'm going to go with standard quality right now of a. Let's just get rid of this too. Just going to get rid of it to keep confusion out of the wall, out of the air. Just talking about a straight up 3D printer that's fresh out of the box like this, you'd probably start out printing in standard quality. That's a 0.4 millimeter nozzle. That's what I have on mine. Printing at 0.2 millimeter layers. In other words, you're squishing that 0.4 millimeters 50%. So you're getting 50% reduced height, yet 50% increased width. Only 25% on each side, but that's what makes things stick together well. Now there is some other qualities built into the straight up Cura slicer. There's low quality, which is a 0.28 millimeter layer height. There's dynamic quality, which you're getting down into a 0.16 millimeter layer height. And then there's super quality, which is a 0.12 millimeter layer height. And you can see it changing right here. Well, I had been playing around with some of these, but never had really done much with them. But to tell you the God's awful truth, I just chose the Talon profile, which I've set up so that I can do this more quickly. I think, in my humble opinion, when I first came in to print this airplane, when I saw the wall count in the instructions, which was the limited information I had. Oops. That's not even in here, is it? Oh boy. Okay. So I guess it was over in the Ardu pilot forum where I found the wall count. Oh, here's where I found it. Boy, it's not in there in the list like the other one, so this threw me for a second. Single wall right here. 3%. This is the information you get for that one. 3% cubic subdivision infill and single wall. If you remember, I first started out with 3% cubic, then reprinted one part with cubic subdivision that I found. But I think, truthfully, at that time, I accidentally thought of this in my brain, single wall, for Cura, because I never really played with these things before, as this right here. I came in and set this from a 3 to a 1, in my humble opinion. And then I think I went on and did other things and looking around and stuff and went, wait a minute, that's not right. That's for single wall means this wall line count here. And I set that to a 1. But I did not set this back. And the reason this is so important, let me pull that piece back in. I think this was the one I was working with. Oh, and real quick, to get it to be basically what I was working with, I'm going to have to flip it 180. Okay, there we go. I think that will do it. And let's put it in the middle of the build surface real quick. Okay, there it is. Now, I'm going to start at the bottom instead of the top. Whoops. So I'm putting it on a raft. That's my personal choice. That's just because I feel like there's imperfections in my printer. On something like this with such a large overhang, I did use tree on this support. Let's see, the support overhang angle right now is 33 degrees. So this did change. There's been a lot of changes. I went back and dumped everything out and restarted from scratch with all the defaults and worked through it all again several times over the last 2 days. Fan speed or cooling 100%. I do have retraction enabled, but I'm going to tell you that little burb I put out where I found on Polymaker's site that they suggested a 3 millimeter retraction and slower retraction speed. I printed with that, and boy, I don't have the videos of it. I've got just a little example of it in front of me, but it was nasty. I think I had pretty well adjusted my retract distance and speed and stuff in the past with some printed out calibration models, and it was actually pretty good. I'm not going to talk about a whole lot about that right this second, but I did do away. I did go in here and put in the retraction distance and retraction speed for a print that was supposed to be finished Thursday, Friday, or Saturday that I ended up printing 2 or 3 times with all sorts of stuff. Like I say, going back several times over this whole thing. So I did take these two away, and they are at these values now, 5 and 45. They said to drop it to 3 and 40. Like I say, when we get to that part of this, I will show you the nastiness that created for me. So that's gone. The print speed, I've been playing with this. Doesn't seem to do much. I've got it pretty much set to 50 on most things now. Surface temperature, nozzle temperature, all fine. Cubic subdivision, infill density, 3%, exactly what they say. Over in another, in the Titan Talon 2, it shows 4 layers, top and bottom, instead of the 6 I was using. That's not going to make a lot of difference either. This is that single wall. I am using the randomized Z-seam alignment. It does work much, much better. And here's the 3% per layer that is recommended. Not here. We don't see anything about it here. But on the version 2, if we want to transpose these instructions between the two, we can see here is 4 top and bottom layers. Single wall, 4 top and bottom layers, 0.3 layer height, 3% cubic subdivision. Over in the forum, RC groups forum for this, they discuss a lot of that too, and they give out these same values. Matter of fact, they were doing it recently. That's why I got pointed in that direction by the one person who came in and said, "What's your layer height?" I replied, I haven't heard back from that person. Doesn't matter. I already got the gold out of that statement. It gave me a direction to pursue. And then I went over on the RC groups because an email came in, a new post came in, and got the information over there about all of this. So you see, printing this part with those settings, which I find to be very good for the print. We got 20 hours and 6 minutes right now. I need to write that down someplace. That's 20 hours and 6 minutes. Come on, computer. Now, if we go back and look, when you're doing the qualities that come with Cura, your standard is that 0.2 layer height. So I have printed with 0.3, all the rest of the perimeters as you see them here, and I have printed with 0.2. And 0.2 layer height doesn't do a lot to you for time. Does take more time, but what was that other one? 20 hours and 6 minutes. There were other people talking about their print times, and they weren't sure why my print times were so high. So you see, I was in the middle getting spoken to about all sorts of different things, and I'm having to pursue all those different inputs. Addition. So you see, this is maybe what, 4 hours, 20 hours and 6 minutes. So it's 4.5 hours longer print. And I have printed things this way. But if you remember, I said, when I started all this out, I had mistakenly did the wall count right here and made this a 1. And I was using that for all those prints of the fuselage. And up until I started printing the V-tails, and during the printing of the V-tails, that's the one that should have been finished Thursday, Friday, or Saturday that you haven't seen yet, is when I started getting into this extra information. So the first 5 prints, the 5 pieces of the fuselage, were printed with this 0.1 millimeter layer height. And I'm going to have to find something to talk about for a long time right here, or just go ahead and cut this in post because it even takes longer to slice. So with the input of one person asking me layer height, one person speaking to me about, boy, my print times are taking much less time than that. Oops, what was that last one? I didn't put it over in the other. It was what? Oh, man, it was one day, 4 hours and 35 minutes. Oh, man. See? That's the kind of little screw-ups I do. Or was that just so I could come over here and figure out a little more time to waste for slicing? So, no, it was 20 hours, then it was 24. Yeah, so it's one day, 4 hours, 35 minutes. Now it takes one day 18 hours and 49 minutes. So when you move from point 2 to point 1, you drastically change your print times. Everything else on this stays the same. But right there's why somebody with a print time of 20 hours on this piece, watching me print it for one day and almost 19 hours, was asking me, boy, mine don't take that long to print. And you can see here, if we grab a smaller print, like the last section of the fuselage, the difference in print time becomes even more drastic. And this all has to do with layer height. So I have some examples I'm about to show you. See, there's 5 hours and 45 minutes with 0.3 millimeter layer height. Lock that down to 0.1, and 5 hours becomes. So I have printed out all the details in 0.3. Because of what happened after that, I moved back to this particular piece because at 0.3 it only had a 4-hour, 5-hour print time. It wasn't one of the big fuselage pieces, and it wasn't, I had put all 6 of the detail pieces on one print job, one project, so that was a lot to print. It was almost 2 days of printing, but that was a lot to print on one print job. So I moved back to just a single piece and chose this one. And see, there's 13 hours and 35 minutes. That's almost 3 times the time. And of course, on one of the big fuselage pieces, this becomes, it almost doubles it from 20 hours to 1 day and 19 hours. 19 plus the 4 hours is 23. That's actually more than doubling the 20 hours. So, but let me show you what happened when I printed out this 3 times. Now there was a lot went on because I also printed them out without support, but we'll talk about that one later. Let me show you what this change in layer height does to the prints. Sorry about this. This place is junked. There's been a flail going on here the past 2 or 3 days that is just crazy. Here's those 3 prints in 3 different layer heights. And you can mix them up any way you want to and hand them to me, and I can sort them by layer height easily. I'm just going to randomly reach in and choose one. This one. Uh-oh. I picked my first one, and I can prove that by this chip. And the reason I say uh-oh is because look how nice that print is at 0.1 millimeter layer height. This is no real cleanup, no sanding. Just pulling off the support, which got me right there. And this was printed with support. That's the 0.1. No doubts about it. Printed with support. Oops. Look at that one. That's the 0.3. How can I tell so quickly? Just by the what looks like gaps in it. Just by the way the layers are. That's how radically different it is. Now this one and the other one, you'll notice this is kind of ragged. That's okay. We're going to talk about that later when I talk about printing these without support, because it does work. And this was printed without support, and that's quite a large gap. Now there are problems with it, but that's not for this video. See all the lines in that print? Now I'm going to keep that one in that hand. This is the 0.2. This is the 2 next to each other. The 0.3, which is what I got off the RC groups, and the Talon V2 build, 0.3 layer height versus the 0.2 layer height. And now we'll pull back in the 0.1 against these other 2. Can you see the difference? Is the difference not just stark? This one at 0.1 prints, it just looks better all the way around. It takes twice as long to print this one as it does at 0.3. 0.2's only slightly longer than 0.3, but the difference in 0.2 and 0.1, the time difference is pretty big on that. And this is the 0.3. Now, as I feel of them and stuff, you know, well, there is a little bit more crackling and crunching to this one, which I think is breaking fibers, in my humble opinion. But there's not to my touch. My touch is not well calibrated. But when I put them on the scale, this is what just shocks the daylights out of me. First off, and I understand this one, look, there's no difference to the layer, number of layers, whatever, so they're all the same height, no matter what you say about the layer height. But watch this. This is the 0.3, 25 grams. This is the 0.1, 22 grams. And this is the 0.2, 23 grams. They're all within 1 or 2 grams of each other. They're not drastically different weights. But to me, there's a drastically different quality
in them, of course. You see, I can put them in my hand in any fashion I want to, and you can see now they're reversed. This is the 0.3, this is the 0.2, and this is the 0.1 right here. It's just easy to see. This is just, I wouldn't call it pristine, but it's just nice as hell. It was also printed with support, and I haven't got all that off yet. And the other two weren't printed with support, but you can see between the 0.2 and the 0.3 radical difference between the 0.2 and the 0.1, not much. So right now I'm thinking, it's not like I'm sitting there pushing the plastic out on the build surface. It's the printer doing it. I can be doing something else. I think I'm going to continue to print these in the 0.1 layer height, and I'm going to take up to twice as long as anybody else takes to print these parts. This just feels stronger to me. It looks stronger. If you were to paint it, sand it, anything like that, it's going to stand up to all that much more. So over the past 2 days, I figured out what were assumed problems with my printing time and my perimeters as best I can. I've refined them all, and I made a plan to move forward. Now, there's other problems. You're not going to believe it with trying to print some of these. Really, look at that. That's just nasty. That was with the retract lessened. There was so much stringing with the retract lessened. It wasn't even funny. But I'm going to go ahead and try to finish this up right here before this gets too long. So this one's basically about the layer height. And 0.1 is a very, very low layer height to be using. But it's just pretty. And I don't suffer a weight penalty. I do suffer a time penalty. And others out there may not understand why mine is taking so much longer than everybody else's. But I think I'm going to have a better print, just myself personally. And that's just what I'm going to do. For right or wrong, better or for worse. I'm going to just drop back to printing it again, just like I was printing it when I started this whole thing, at a 0.1 layer height, and all the rest of the perimeters exactly like they were when I was printing the rest. I've got that one piece right there to reprint on the fuselage because of some problems in the build surface coming loose, and it kind of vibrating around on the build surface. Okay, guys, thank you.